Hey there, movie lovers. Welcome back to Rocky Watches Movies. Today we're diving into the glamorous and scandalous world of Valley of the Dolls. Released in 1967, this cult classic took audiences behind the glittering facade of fame, exposing the struggles, addictions, and heartbreak lurking beneath Hollywood's surface. But how much do you really know about what went on behind the scenes? So put on your best outfit, pack your pills, and let's pop through 20 things you never knew about Valley of the Dolls. The novel opens during a heat wave in New York City at the end of World War II, while the film begins in the middle of winter amid heavy snowfall. This change occurred because the producers were eager to start production and did not want to wait for warmer weather, a decision that greatly angered the book's author, Jacqueline Susann. The film's era was also updated, shifting the story from its original 1945 and 1950s setting to the mid to late 1960s. The film's ending was also dramatically altered. Original screenwriter Harlan Ellison had retained the novel's more downbeat conclusion, in which Anne and Leon are married with a child, and Anne relies on the dolls to numb herself from the pain of Leon's affairs. However, after rewrites by Deutsch and Kingsley, the ending was changed. Anne leaves Leon and her job to return to Lawrenceville, described as the one place where she found genuine happiness. Leon later visits her to propose, but she refuses. These changes, so at odds with Anne's established character familiar to millions of readers, led Ellison to remove his name from the film's credits. Richard Dreyfuss made his big screen debut near the end of the film, playing an assistant stage manager who knocks on Neely's door to find her intoxicated. Although he had appeared in several television shows beforehand, this was his first film role, and it went uncredited. That same year, he also had a small part in The Graduate. Dreyfuss later said that he had been in both the best film of 1967, The Graduate, and the worst, Valley of the Dolls. Judy Garland was originally cast in the role of Helen Lawson, but was fired due to her drinking and erratic behaviour. She was replaced at the last minute by Susan Haywood. Patty Duke later claimed that director Mark Robson, whom she described as the meanest man she had ever met, had deliberately kept Garland waiting in her dressing room all day, knowing that by the time she was called to set, she would likely be intoxicated. In her 1987 autobiography, Call Me Anna, Duke expressed the view that Garland had been deliberately exploited by the studio, suggesting that the producers may have felt justified in hiring her initially, but once they had gained publicity from the Judy comeback stories, she was deemed expendable. She noted that in her view, she should never have been hired in the first place. In an interview, Jacqueline Susann shared her thoughts on why Garland had been let go. She said that many people had asked her why Garland was fired, as though it was her fault. Susann believed the problem stemmed from Garland's background in the studio system, where multiple takes were standard practice, whereas the other actresses had been trained in television and were accustomed to getting it right in a single take. She suggested that Garland had simply become rattled by the faster pace. Director Mark Robson and producer David Weisbart interviewed numerous prominent actresses for the trio of women. Here are some of the interesting what could have beens. 20th Century Fox had wanted contract star Raquel Welch for the role of Jennifer, but she declined, not wishing to play a sex bot character. She requested the role of Neely instead, but the studio refused. And according to her autobiography, Helen Mirren had auditioned for the role of Neely O'Hara, while Jane Fonda declined the part. Joan Crawford was also considered for the role of Helen Lawson. Julie Christie rejected both the roles of Anne and Jennifer, with Ursula Andress also turning down the role of Jennifer. Ultimately, Sharon Tate, Patty Duke and Barbara Parkins were cast. Costume designer William Travilla was tasked with creating over 130 outfits for the four leading actresses. He later explained that he hadn't initially been given a script, so he first read the book and then the screenplay once it became available. After meeting with the director and producer to discuss their views on each character, he spoke with the actresses to learn what they liked, disliked, and how they felt about their roles. Travilla said he then combined his own impressions with theirs to capture the essence of each character. In the 2006 documentary, Gotta Get Off This Merry-Go-Round, Sex, Dolls and Show Tunes, Barbara Parkins criticised the director for keeping the depiction of pill addiction superficial. She explained that he never took the cast aside to show them the effects, and that they never explored the issue in depth. Parkins suggested that if a director like Martin Scorsese had helmed the film, he would have guided the actors through the full emotional, physical and mental impact of the drugs, creating a completely different film. Director Mark Robson maintained a highly combative relationship with his actresses, singling out Sharon Tate for especially harsh treatment. Patty Duke despised working with him, and even years after his death continued to describe him as a mean son of a bitch. Of all the characters in the film, Duke's Neely is the most exaggerated. Duke later admitted that she had once felt embarrassed by the role and had spoken unkindly about it. Over time, however, she encountered countless fans who adored her performance, which led her to reconsider. She came to embrace the camp appeal, noting that she could now enjoy it. This marked the first of composer John Williams' 54 Oscar nominations, making him the second most nominated individual after Walt Disney. His first win came for Fiddler on the Roof, the first of 5 Academy Awards he would eventually receive. His most recent was in 1994 for Schindler's List. Author Jacqueline Susann erred in negotiating her contract for Fox's purchase of her novel, granting the studio the right to produce a sequel without securing any approval rights for herself. When Fox released Beyond the Valley of the Dolls in 1970, Susann was so offended by its cheesy tone and overall tackiness that she filed a lawsuit in an attempt to block its release. Consequently, the studio was compelled to use the tagline, "This is not a sequel. There's never been anything like it." The suit did not go on trial until after Susann's death in 1974. Her estate won a $2 million verdict against the studio in August 1975. In 1995, the Los Angeles theatre troupe Theatre A Go-Go adapted the film into a stage production. Kate Flannery, later known for her role as Meredith Palmer on The Office, played Neely. Barbara Parkins attended one of the performances and gave it her approval. The play eventually transferred to New York in an off-Broadway production. Some advertisements for the film featured photographs of the female leads, accompanied by taglines highlighting each character and her preferred pill colour, such as, "This is so-and-so, she took the red pills." However, the ad department had paid little attention to the details of the story, as the same approach was applied to Susan Hayward's character, Helen Lawson, the only lead female who did not take pills and was notably outspoken about her disdain for recreational pill use. Also, to promote the film, the studio organised a month-long premiere party aboard a luxury liner. During a screening in Venice, Susann reportedly told Parkins that she found the film appalling and felt Hollywood had completely ruined her book. She even requested to be taken off the ship and at one point allegedly told Robson directly that she considered the film a piece of rubbish. Upon its release, the film was widely derided and condemned by critics. Bosley Crowther of the New York Times remarked that all a reasonable, respectful admirer of cinema could do was laugh at it and look away. Despite this, audiences flocked to see the film, which went on to become 20th Century Fox's highest-grossing release of 1968. It earned over $44 million worldwide, against around a $5 million budget. All of Neely's songs in the film were dubbed, much to Patty Duke's disappointment. She admitted that she knew she couldn't sing like a trained vocalist, but she felt it was important for Neely to start off sounding fairly good, with her later decline reflected in a raw, emotional style. Duke explained that she couldn't persuade the director to take that approach, as he insisted on dubbing all the songs. She later said the final result lacked the passion she had hoped to convey. Patty Duke's final album for United Artists Records, Patty Duke Sings Songs from Valley of the Dolls and Other Selections, struggled to find its audience, despite the popularity of the film and being released amid the height of the movie's media frenzy. The lack of commercial traction meant that the album was discontinued after only a year. In 2000, Grant, Duke and Parkins reunited on The View. Grant described the film as the best, funniest and worst movie ever made. She went on to recall how she and Duke had appeared in a film about killer bees titled The Swarm, adding that in comparison, Valley of the Dolls had seemed like genius. A couple of years after the film, on the night the Manson family murdered Sharon Tate, the actress had invited author Jacqueline Susann to a dinner party at her home. But Rex Reed visited Susan at the Beverly Hills Hotel where she was staying, and they chose to remain there rather than attend Tate's gathering. The following day, Susan learned of the murder and was reported to have wept by the pool. And there you have it, folks. You now know a little bit more about Valley of the Dolls. If you enjoyed the video, which I presume you did as you got this far, hit that like button and subscribe, so you don't miss any future videos coming to Rocky Watches Movies. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.